Good morning. It's Thursday, and here's George, and here's Sean, and we're all ready to go. And we got a special guest today. We got Dr. Michael Schwartz, who wrote Vaccine Fiction. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys say good morning and everything.
Good morning. Good morning. What a wonderful job on that opening reel, I got to say. It's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, too many event pitches.
Well, that's what the whole thing was. It was.
I was looking. Some of them I saw before, and some I didn't. But I think the greatest one I thought was the one with him in the robe, and I think that was when the lady Kim was meeting around the pool.
Yeah, that inspired that whole robe episode, but that's why he kept popping in that way. That was pretty funny.
That was fantastic.
And I was going to. Can you hear me okay? Oh.
Huh?
Can you hear me all right?
Oh, yeah.
Straight on mic.
Yeah, you got that $1,000 microphone. That's doing pretty good.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I had to find out how the hell it worked. It wasn't a magician thing. I didn't know that you can't talk through the side. You got to talk on the top.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do our opening prayer thing. So that way we got that out. And this one, this is going to fit for everybody that was arguing in the chat and everything yesterday. So it's called Instantly. Heavenly Father, I stand on the edge of anticipation, like a watchman falling for dawn. Fill my heart with expectant faith, knowing you're about to do something instantly and extraordinary. Break through my doubts with your mighty power and let your wonders burst forth like a river in the desert. I'm ready for your sudden breakthroughs, Lord. Move in ways I can't even imagine and let your glory shine in my life. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Yeah, and that kind of means cool your jets, let everybody have time to get everything done. We've only just begun, what are we in? Not even 60 days in yet. So
yeah. It's funny. Everybody's a little they thought there was going to be a light switch, right? They thought Trump was going to go like this with the economy.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to work that way. It's going to take some time. I think I heard Mark Levin say it took Reagan 2 years to undig out of what Jimmy Carter has done. And I think Biden's worse. But I think Trump is going to be better than Reagan. So we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a little monument adjustment up there after this is over.
Oh, yeah, like a Trump monument?
That would be nice.
Mount Rushmore.
That would be fantastic. That would be fantastic.
I got a spot right there. I saw it.
There is. Right on the side. There is, right? Be perfect for the waving hair on top, right? The way the mountain is. So, yeah.
Right. A lot of stuff. Everybody's complaining about why Painted Bonnie's taking so long and blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but we'll discuss that tomorrow.
Yes. We'll have fun tomorrow. We're going to do our trivia today, and then tomorrow give the answer for that too. And then I got a bunch of real funny stuff for tomorrow too. I mean, it's politic related, but we'll have a good time. Like last Friday, that was a good time.
All right, for everybody in the chat, Trix has been putting some stuff together, which is pretty cool. So I think everybody's going to really enjoy it.
Yeah, I've been working on it all week. So, but it's not that big of a deal. It just takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it because everybody has a good time when we do that kind of stuff, and I like that. So.
Yep.
Okay, well, Dr. Schwartz is here, so I'm going to bring him up for everybody. I think he's ready.
He's always ready.
Yeah, and the ladies are going to like him because he's cute.
He's got that beautiful wife that keeps him on his toes, right, Mike?
Well, I'm not always ready. I'm still prepping my show, so I was trying to label videos as I was waiting over here. But yes, she does keep me on my toes. How you guys doing?
Hey, brother, what's up?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Good. Nice to see you, Sean. How you doing, Trix? George, I see you all the time. So, hey.
I know. It's getting boring.
Never, George, never.
I don't know how you could be bored with George. I mean, he keeps you on your toes all the time.
It's all the Born to Ride for 45. It's like the Borg. It's great. I get Chris Perry. I see him in the chat. I got Alan. I got George. And it's a love relationship, right, George? It's all love.
Yep.
I was going to come in last night, but we were out for my wife's birthday, so I got home a little late.
Well, happy birthday to your wife there.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Happy
Oh,
birthday,
yeah.
Tom.
Happy birthday, Lana. She's probably not watching, though. She's probably working, huh?
No, she is working right now. Yep, she is. Maybe
So,
she's
Mike, tell us a
listening.
little about yourself there, Dr. Mike.
What do you want to know, George? I mean,
I know everything, but the people in the chat don't, so you might as well tell them.
Long career. I want me to start from the beginning. I was born.
No.
Start from high school. Start from high school. The first fight you had in high school, and start with that.
What, Sean? It's funny you say that because I almost have to start from. I moved out when I was 15. I started my first company when I was 17. So
Wow.
I've been in business for 33 years, I guess. Now I sound really old. I started off entrepreneur, office supply company. Later in life, I became a police officer. That was fun. I got out of that because I just couldn't see myself doing law enforcement for the rest of my life. Was always an entrepreneur. Got back into business. Got my multiple degrees. Got my pilot's license. I wound up getting a doctorate in business administration. Own a couple medical clinics. I wrote 2 books on COVID because we were the first company in New Jersey to do a COVID test. 19,000 patients. We had did 44,000 tests. We had a lot of data on COVID. So I wrote 2 books on that, Fauci's Fiction and Vaccine Fiction. And then I just released a book yesterday called The Only Way to Save America, Trump 2.0, The Battle for Common Sense. That just came out, and it hit number 1 in one of the categories already, thanks to you guys and my show, which is great. And then, of course, I do a show on Rumble, 2 shows, The Mike Schwartz Show. Right after this, I'll be on at 10, and then 2 Mics Live with Mike Calderese and my lovely wife, Kelly.
Very nice.
It's a good show.
Well, thank you. I miss you. You haven't been in the chat in the last couple of weeks.
I haven't. Yeah, I got a couple of things going on. I'm actually running for council in my hometown here, and so I've been a little busy. I got a couple, work and everything else, but I've been a little busy. But I'll get in there again.
Or anything we could do to help. I think we're both in New Jersey, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're probably about 35, 40 minutes from me, if that.
What town are you in, Sean?
Hamilton.
Oh, you're in Hamilton. All right.
Yeah.
Who was the mayor there? Kelly something.
Kelly Yeadie was a mayor here.
Yes. Yeadie, right?
Well, yeah.
She's not anymore, right? I don't think so.
What's that?
She's not mayor anymore, correct?
No. Now we have unfortunately now we have a full Democrat control for mayor and council, and we have a rubber stamp council. The budget has increased tremendously over the years. It's pathetic.
Well, let's get you on our show, and anything I could do to help.
I appreciate it.
It's done. Sure.
I appreciate it. Absolutely.
So tell us about your investigation with the vaxxers and all the studies you did and everything else. Because I know what, George, a lot of people about you. So
it's so tough. I do these interviews all the time, and I tell you, it's fun. I can always kind of tell, like, where to start with, basically what questions the host is asking. And it's tough, when I do these, 4-minute interviews on like Newsmax or OAN or something, because you're not getting the whole story. I wrote 2 books on it. It would take hours. We did, George, you came down to a book signing I did down in Tampa, and it's great because you hear people ask questions and they don't know anything. Thank you. They know nothing about COVID. It's kind of amazing. I guess all the misinformation came out in the media. It came from different sources and people didn't quite know what to believe. What I find now is that a lot of people have confirmation biases. They kind of gravitate toward one bias, and that determines their entire thought on the 5 years or 4 years, whatever you want to call it, that we went through. The lockdowns, the suicide rates. There's a lot more to COVID than most people know, and no one wants to talk about it anymore. That's why it doesn't get ratings, so people don't want to get you on their shows to talk about it, which is why I had to pivot, and I'm glad to do so because I'm kind of tired of talking about it too. But what do you find, George? It's like, where do you want to start? I mean, we had 19,000 patients, did 44,000 tests. What we found from the data early on, and we predicted the mortality rate of COVID in April of 2020. Okay, when everybody was still masked, locked down, we had hundreds of patients by then, and no one was dying. Most people who get sick from COVID had a co-infection. You only know that if you do proper testing. Only about 10 to 15% of people who had COVID only get classic symptoms like cough, fever, shortness of breath. So we learned a lot about everything. We learned a lot about medicine through mass testing. Was the mass testing necessary? No. But the fact that we did it and had 44,000 tests tells you a lot about medicine that we're not talking about now. Doctors didn't understand this and didn't learn from what we went through. So now you go to the doctor and they kind of went back to the old way of doing things. Rapid test for everything, flu, strep, COVID, that's it. Well, there's 31 things on a respiratory pathogen panel that we have. And a lot of doctors went back to guessing. Well, you think they'd want to say, hey, what did we learn from all this mass testing? So it's kind of like, you guys get asked the questions, but it's kind of like, where do you want to start? There's so many different avenues we could go down. And it took me 2 full books to get all that information out. What surprises me is that when I go on a TV show, most hosts are asking questions that are in like chapter 1 of the book. And I'm going, you guys got to catch up. Like, we need to get to the kind of the end of the story. I tell people, read both books, get on my baseline, and then we could have a real conversation about COVID. And we could kind of, we could at that point evolve and move into the future of medicine. But everyone refuses to do that because they have COVID, PTSD basically from COVID. So wherever you want to start, I'm happy to go there.
Okay, I have a really good question now. I know it was split like with for your autoimmune and AIDS because of where it went through with Wuhan. Now they're calling it long COVID, but it's really what do you call it? Acquired or vaccine acquired autoimmune deficiency. And the amount of autoimmune diseases where I'm concerned, coming into the future, because people are just going to keep getting sicker and sicker and sicker. What you're saying with the comorbidities, and as you get older, so as the population ages out, what kind of effect do you think this is going to have really on the general population?
Well, COVID was just as bad as the shot. I mean, the shots mimic COVID. So now a lot of people are trying to figure out like where did this come from? Because there's 2 conversations. We can get into the COVID stuff and the origins of COVID, because that was bad enough. The fact that it was, manufactured, released, what everybody was trying to push this zoonotic nonsense. Do viruses come out zoonotically? Yes. But the way COVID came out, we said it right from the start. It looked like it came out of one central source, and that was because of the way it was mutating. All right. Yeah. And when you look at the way it was mutating, it looked like it came out of one central source. Now, of course, 5 years later, everybody's like, yeah, it came out of the lab in Wuhan, but nobody wanted to admit that. We kind of figured that out early on. But then the second question is the shots. I don't want to call them vaccines. And I say this all the time, because when you say the word vaccine to somebody who's 70, 80, 90 years old, they're thinking lifetime immunity or inoculation. That's not what these shots give you. And I get really into the minutia of the differences between the technologies, because most people lump the word vaccine and all of a sudden everybody's confused and they, RFK or Dr. Schwartz is anti-vax. That's not the case. When you look at MMR or polio, those are live attenuated vaccines. Those are different technologies that have used, that have worked traditionally in the past. We're looking at now subunit vaccines, viral vector vaccines, and of course, what you've heard of the mRNA vaccines. It's a completely different technology. So when people are talking about, vaccines as a whole, they're conflating multiple things. And I know they don't know what they're talking about. And that's where it confuses the public, because the public doesn't understand all these different differences in technologies. So I refuse to, number one, call the mRNA shot a vaccine, because it's very confusing to people. They give you at best measured 120-day antibody response. That's what we saw in practice. We measured antibody responses after natural infection, and we measured them after the shot. Okay, because I had a lot of police departments that wanted to do that. And I like to digress for 1 second, because what people don't understand is sick people go to the hospital and the doctor's office. We had that, but we also were testing police departments, school districts, nursing homes every single week, right? So we have the largest amount of horizontal data in the entire country. When you test the same police officers every single week for 3 straight years, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about, classic symptomology. Those people also wanted those antibody tests after shots and after natural infection. So we have data on that nobody else in the country has, which is it really does paint a different picture. So when you get into the autoimmune diseases and you want to talk about that, like, did it come from the inflammation of COVID, which is one side of the equation, or did it come from the inflammation of the shots? You have a lot of people who didn't get shots who have long COVID from just getting COVID. And then you have a lot of people who got shots who are even worse than those people, because they got multiple inflammatory reactions that caused whatever they're having now, whether it's a heart issue or joint issues. That's what we see the most, or now, of course, the abundance of cancer that we're seeing, which is crazy. And it's rare cancer in young people. And there's charts to exemplify that in the book that George was holding up, Vaccine Fiction. But there's another story to that, because the government data that you're hearing, there's only about 1% of the cases that make it into the government data, which you've all heard of as VAERS. Now, Harvard agrees with me on that. So when you look at the numbers in theirs, you have to multiply that by 100. But when a media outlet like fake news, MSNBC or CNN wants to report on something like that, they just look at numbers and don't understand that it's only 1% of what's out there. So, that might not be the top headline, but if you heard that 5 million people or 7.5 million people died from these COVID shots, it might be top headline every single day.
You know what?
Yeah.
I got a friend of mine just texted me a question. He's flying back. My friend Chris is flying back from Hawaii. So you gotta love technology, right? He's on a plane, and he says to me, he says, ask him if it's a true statement that vaccines save millions of lives. He read that today. We know the answer.
I'll tell you about the COVID shot, because that's interesting, because we have proprietary.
Well, the COVID vaccine. That's what he meant, the COVID vaccine for clarity.
Well, yeah, I want to be specific for your audience, Sean. You know how I am. I don't want to get
no. Do it with Donald Trump's voice. Do that one.
Yeah, we're gonna do it quickly. We're gonna do it fast, and we're gonna do it quickly.
So we're better than Sean Farish.
What's that?
You're better than Sean Farish.
Somebody told everybody on my show has been telling me that I sound like Steven Crowder, but I've never listened to Steven Crowder, so I have no idea. Maybe he's doing an imitation to me. I have no idea. When it comes to the COVID shots, guys, this is the important thing. You got to remember timeline, right? And put yourself in my shoes. I want you to go back to 2020. We were the only people doing the testing for this in New Jersey. People caught up in a couple of weeks, but we were alone on an island for weeks. Now we're doing this testing, and we're finding out a lot of things, and we're trying to tell everybody in the world, like, hey, this isn't as deadly as you think. All my patients have this. They're all recovering. They're all fine. We're using vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc, right? The numbers were stark, but we were recording this information because we were trying to tell the whole of the world. You got to remember, the rest of the world was masked up, locked down, scared out of their minds, and we're trying to tell people like just what we're seeing in our data set at the time. So that's measurable. Now, the shots didn't come out for another year. So when the shots came out, guess what? The numbers didn't change. The numbers of asymptomatic versus who had symptoms, classic symptomology, the sickest of the sick, again, remember, had co-infection. See, COVID is not, and I explain this all the time, COVID is not just negative or positive. COVID is either negative or positive with caveats. The caveats are, what is your CT value? That is your viral load. That is very important, hugely important, George. And then you have co-infection, you have comorbidity, and then you have something that we did, recorded symptomology. We called every single patient, every positive, every night, to record their symptomology when we reported they're positive. So this is important. When you put all that together, it gives COVID a completely different look from the 30,000-foot view. So your question was, did the vaccine?
Oh, we got the rumble freeze.
Uh-oh.
The StreamYard.
Oh, we're okay. It's on his.
It's on his Mike's side.
Yeah, we're back.
Oh, there we go. Now you're back. We thought maybe Kelly unplugged you.
No. We've been having some issues with the internet over here in the studio. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully it doesn't go out. But the numbers didn't change, Sean. That's the important part. The numbers before the shots existed and the numbers after the shots existed were exactly the same. So when the government tells you that these shots make an appreciable difference, that you're getting less sick or less hospitalizations, that's not true. That's a blatant lie. And what you see in practice every day, what the reason that COVID is not as deadly now, it for two reasons. You understand why it killed people in the beginning. It killed people in the beginning because for two reasons. One, it was novel. And two, we didn't know how to treat it. So you had a lot of doctors putting people on vents too early and things like that. But a novel virus,
too, right?
What's that?
Remdesivir. That was a real smack.
It is. But I mean, natural immunity is the bigger kicker here. When you understand what's inside the capsicum of a virus, there's 27 proteins, and the what's mutating is the spike protein. So once you get COVID the first time naturally, you're getting what's called a B and T lymphocyte memory cell response to all of the proteins inside the virus. So the next time you get it, you're responding to the spike protein mutation, but your body has memory cells to the whole of the virus. So you're not getting as sick. It's like any other coronavirus. I always say on my shows, have you ever heard of NL63 or OL43?
No,
not me.
Those are other coronaviruses that we also test for on our panel, but you've never heard of them because they were never exposed during an election cycle. This is kind of the point that I'm trying to make. There's 7 different coronaviruses that we test for. And at the very beginning of this, and maybe the first 2 weeks of testing, I said to my staff and everybody else and my patients, I said, this thing, SARS-CoV-2, is just going to be another thing on our panel that's buried in the panel that no one knows about, just like NL63 or 0043. NL63 came out, it's Netherlands 63. It was discovered in 2014, I believe. It causes what everybody calls cold-like symptoms. Cold-like symptoms, flu-like symptoms are the same thing. Cough, fever, shortness of breath. What happens is when the viral load starts to increase in someone's system, and that'll happen if you're not sleeping, eating, if you're run down, the virus can then replicate to the point where it starts to destroy the mitochondria of your cells. That's when you get sick. What we've discovered through all this mass testing, and what we're not talking about through 28 chapters of books, is that all of these things, most of you are running around at some point during the year where you have caught something, but you're not exhibiting symptoms. So what we think traditionally is we get sick, we catch something and we get sick. What we've learned is we catch a lot of things, but we don't get sick from it because it doesn't destroy the mitochondria of your cells. When you're run down, it can take over. But again, if you look at testing and you understand it in totality, I'll give you an example. I talk about a guy 5 years ago who had in my office COVID, staph, H flu, and RSV all at the same time. He would not have known that if he wasn't properly tested by us. He would have gone to Walgreens, home test, thought COVID was the worst thing in the world. Meanwhile, he was sick from this other stuff. Needed to put all that in perspective. So when I get somebody who comes to me, Sean, this is the best. I get somebody who always wants to fight with me. And they don't fight with me based on their data because they don't have any. They fight with me based on a myopic view. And it's usually somebody who says, well, I had COVID and this is what happened. So then I ask them the question, what kind of test did you have? They have no idea. They're like the one up the nose. I'm like, what was your CT value? They have no idea. I go, did you have a co-infection? No idea. I go, your data wouldn't even be included in my set. It would be thrown out because it would skew the numbers. You have to know all of this information on these patients to paint a proper picture. And there's a lot more to it than most people think.
Yeah, it's pretty involved when you go back through that. But what I kind of wanted to get at was like the turbo cancer, because that's really exploding so much and everything. Do you think that's really going to end up peaking and then stopping, or do you think it's just going to keep increasing?
I hope it peaks and stops as more people stop getting, these shots. I mean, there's talk. I interviewed Dr. Jancy Lindsay in my book. She's a microbiologist, toxicologist. She talks about shedding. So, you worry about the folks who didn't get shots and is that going to affect people? And she says shedding is real. I interview an embalmer, Richard Hirschman, who was made famous in the movie Died Suddenly, because you want to bring in other experts to say, what are you seeing in the world? But when you talk to the medical experts, is that calming down? I guess I'd have to write a third book on COVID, and that's not happening. What I hear on the ground, it seems like it's calming down a bit as people stop rushing out to get these shots, but we don't really know the true long-term effects. What I predicted early on, Trix, was that, I think that what COVID and these shots did was it probably shortened the lifespan of the entire populace by about 3 to 5 years. That's a conservative estimate, more like 7 to 9 years, more of a liberal estimate. But a lot of people don't know that yet, right? So if you got what we saw early on was we saw the woman who would have a joint issue at 40, now it's coming out at 20. The guy who would have a heart issue.
To bring that up,
We saw this earlier. So, if people didn't die right away, did it cause enough damage that someone's lifespan is going to be shortened, that they're going to deal with all these medical problems later? But when you bring up the cancers, that's kind of the oddball, right? You get a 26-year-old showing up at the hospital for some random testing, and they find on an incidental finding that this 26-year-old kid has full-blown stage 4 cancer and never sees the light of day again. They wind up never leaving the hospital. Those are the stories that, when you hear them in abundance, and when you do a doctoral study, right, you do something called the thematic approach or the thematic analysis. So when you have all these similar stories coming in from all over the country, all over the world, they start to then paint a picture thematically of what's going on in the industry. And that's kind of what you hear. So there's a chapter in the book called What Are the Nurses Seeing? You may want to pay attention. And that really kind of starts to get your mind going of, wow, this stuff is like, we're not done with this yet. Has it peaked? I hope so, but we're definitely not done with the damage that it's caused.
I'm curious how it's going to affect the children, the one, you know, in the long term, because they were so much younger when they got the jab or whatever you want to call it, that you wonder how, you know, the trajectory of what's going to happen with them. You know, are they going to come down with cancer like when they're 10, 15 years old, and after they got the jab when they were like 3 or 4? And then the heart issues too. That's a big one I think about too, because
my son got myocarditis.
You know,
my son got myocarditis, and plus he can't have fructose. He gets these blackouts for 10 seconds and stuff, so he's got to stay away from that stuff.
I love how
he never had that before. He never had
this myocarditis. It sounds like you're playing Mario Kart, George.
I don't know how to say it because it's Brooklyn. You making fun of me, Mike?
The Brooklyn accent comes in.
But tell him how you've been prosecuted because of the truth that you brought out to make people aware of the.
I'm not supposed to talk about it anymore, but I will for you guys. I've been told to kind of bring it down a little bit, but I got about, I want to say about, I don't know, I can't remember how many months it was after I released the book. It was right after I started doing national TV. So, you know, a couple appearances on like OAN and you know, Fox News, and then Newsmax. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I get a subpoena from the Department of Justice looking for information, not a criminal subpoena, civil subpoena. That's how they do it. But everybody on my staff, all the labs that I work with, all of a sudden the government starts looking for information. And we're like, what is it? So, of course, my lawyers are like, this has got to be from the book. Like everybody said to me when I released the book, wait for it. It's coming. And then all of a sudden it came. And now we're all sitting here spending money on lawyers trying to give the government all this information they're looking for. And they didn't say like what they were looking for. And they didn't say who they were looking at. All they said was, we want you to send over text messages and phone records. And so we're, you know, and look, you got two choices with the federal government. You can say no and basically plead the fifth, and then you know, or you can say fine, I'll comply. Now the problem with saying no is a lot of times, and my lawyers tell me, they can get a judge to compel you to do it. So you're going to wind up spending more money on lawyers at $500 an hour to get to the point of they're eventually going to get all the information from you anyway, where they're going to find nothing. But you know, the government can indict a ham sandwich. So you always wonder, what are they looking at? Are they, you know, look, when I was a police officer, if I followed you in your car for the entire day or my entire shift, and I saw you swerve over the line, go over a mile an hour, the speed, by the end of the day, you'd be in jail. You'd have no license left, right?
Yeah.
This selective prosecution that the government does, this lawfare, they have unlimited power, unlimited resources. They don't care. It's not their dime. So, you know, when somebody in my staff is getting a subpoena that says Department of Justice, that's scary, especially to a nurse practitioner who's, you know, 60 some years old, who's never, you know, had any interaction with the law. They see Department of Justice, they get scared. Yeah, so it's been a struggle. It's been a lot of fun. Let me tell you, thank God, you know, we got ourselves back in office and this has kind of slowed down, but we're not quite sure. A lot of the people that were there doing this investigation were digging in when Trump won, as if they were trying to prove their existence with their jobs. So now that seemed to calm down, but we don't have any resolution on it yet.
Well, that's why their conviction rate is so high. It's not because the people are actually guilty. It's because they plead to something else just to stop the storm.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know,
hasn't been fun, Sean.
I'm sure, man. I'm sure.
There's a lot of people
who went through it.
A lot of people in the chat were affected by the, you know, COVID stuff. Family members that were, you know, because of the government, the amount of saying BS that they put out. Convince people to get the shot, but and use the word like you said, Mike, the vaccine. When the government used that word, the vaccine, they thought that the people thought they were going to be protected by something. If they were just told it was a shot, I think they would have thought differently.
Well, put yourself in my shoes, because it's really basic stuff and lowest common denominator. Mm-hmm. So remember, the shots came out a year into this, and we had tested at that point thousands of patients. So we had no one die out of our 19,000 patients. We didn't lose one. I only had 4 go to the hospital. And we also started getting, when the shots came out, you got to remember we were calling every patient. So this is what we hear, a thematic analysis, right? In the first month of COVID, in the first 2 months of COVID, we would be calling patients, telling them they're positive. And of course they would say to us on the phone, I don't understand how I'm positive. I've been wearing a mask the whole time. You want to roll your eyes. Now, a year down the road, a year and 3 months down the road, we got to remember we were dealing with the public at large. So you'd have people who got shots and then they might get sick later, come in for a COVID test. We would call that patient and say, hey, just want to let you know you're positive. It is COVID. They would say, I don't understand. I was fully vaccinated. So again, right. So we're recording this. So in real time, we're seeing a couple things. One, the shots don't work. But two, you didn't need it. So if you had come to me a year into this and said, Mike, do I need this shot? I always say this. The answer was a laughable no, you don't need this shot. Stupid. Right? All my patients are fine recovering. I'm getting people that the word breakthrough case, we never used it because it broke through on everybody. And we told people you could get as sick and you could die. What the president was saying on TV and what the CDC was spewing was blatant lies. Now, if we knew this, I figured
clarify which president.
Well, of course, President Biden. But look, and
just in case for the late tuners, that's all. People tune in late,
Well, you know what, Sean? Though, and look, I'm a big supporter of President Trump, but you got to remember, Trump came out with Operation Warp Speed, so there's a lot of people in the administration that don't want to talk about COVID because they have their fingerprints on that as well. And I hope they do. I had a conservative on my show recently and said, I'd respect President Trump even more if he kind of said, hey, look, we made a mistake. It wasn't that we didn't have the best advice at the time. And we kind of, let's come together and figure this out. And I think that's why, both sides don't want to talk about this. You had us who was trying to get a vaccine out with bad advice from bad advisors. And then, of course, you have the left who went full force with this and got everybody in the world shut up. So nobody wants to talk about COVID. I wrote 2 books on it, and I can't get on a show anymore because everybody's, we're afraid. And Newsmax, just to bring on, I know Ed's on Newsmax now, but I was told by the producers at Newsmax that the company as a whole had forced a lot of their people to get shots, so they don't want to talk about it on air. And I was okay. So I went on to David Harris Jr. show recently, and I was told not to talk about the shots. And David Harris brought it up, and I was like, to his credit, he brought it up, and we had a great conversation. And the producer said, "Oh, that was great." And I'm like, "Well, I don't understand why you guys are afraid to talk about this. The truth is there. Just because and I get it. Don't get me wrong. There's companies out there that are scared that they forced everybody to do this, but we have to talk about this openly, or we're never going to get to the bottom of it."
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. It's a huge scam though overall with everything. I mean, just how they scared people and everything. But a friend of mine just texted me, liquor stores were open, right? They shut down everybody else's business. Liquor stores were open, stuff like that. You couldn't catch it in there.
What about the aisles?
The aisles with the arrows. You had to walk this way. If you walk the wrong way,
I got 5 people. Boy, let me tell you.
I think George got yelled at for walking the wrong way up an aisle. As a matter of fact, So
hey, you should have heard my what do you call my paragraph that I told a woman that germs don't jump over the over the aisles.
Well, people went nuts during that time. I mean, they went mental. Really, I mean, everybody got so freaked out over it because of just getting pounded with that information day after day with the numbers running and everything. They scared the heck out of so many people. There was no reason for it. It really wasn't.
I think it's really a shame when you think about, here we are 5 years later, right? It's because we started testing on March 16th of 2020. So in 3 days, it'll be my 5-year anniversary from the first COVID test I did, being that guy alone on an island where everybody and their mother was calling me, and I was running out of supplies daily because we just didn't have enough. When you think about that, and you go 5 years later, I don't need to put you guys on the spot, but when you ask people the question of how long's the incubation period of COVID? They look at you with a blank stare. You go, how long's the virus sustain in your system? They look at you with a blank stare. And I don't know if you know the answer to those questions, but the basic stuff could have been disseminated to the public within days. And it would have calmed everybody down, because if everybody understood, hey, the incubation period of COVID, 3 to 5 days. So by the time you start feeling symptoms, by the time you walk in with a cough, you're on day 4. The virus can only sustain in your system for 14 days. So guess what? That's why we added 10 days of isolation. At the end of that, you're not contagious. In other words, we had people running into our office every single day for a repeat test. Why? And I would have to explain to police chiefs Stop sending your officers over for an additional test. Once you've been confirmed positive, you're done. You don't need to keep testing to find out when you're negative. After 10 days, you're done. At that point, you're shedding dead cells. You're not contagious. But I'd have to say this. It was so frustrating every day. Put me on TV for 20 minutes. Forget about Fauci at the White House podium.
Oh, yeah.
We needed to get the basics out to the population, just to calm everybody down, get their understanding of how this works, how to mitigate it the proper way instead of freaking out everybody. And we didn't do that. And that's what was so frustrating for guys like me, because we know this stuff. I work with I manage medical staff. They came up with all of these protocols, and we looked at it in practice to see what's going to work, right? We only used, as I mentioned, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and electrolytes. That was it. Nobody died. We learned about proning. We learned a lot of great things. We learned about proper testing. When you talk to the populace now, they have no idea how testing works, or they have some ridiculous notion because they read an article somewhere and they get this confirmation bias again that has changed their whole perception of it. The basics are important. And even 5 years later, through a pandemic, you got to remember, suicides up, kids out of school, businesses shuttered, lives ruined. And nobody knows the basics of this. You've got to be kidding me. I would have thought if you told me that 10 years ago that we'd have a scenario like that, and 5 years later nobody would care, I'd say, you got to be kidding me. American public's smarter than that. Now I've realized the American public's a lot dumber than we give them credit for.
And people handed over their liberty willingly.
Yep.
Well, that was the whole point of some of that. We're going to get into a whole different rabbit hole with that part of it.
Yeah.
But the fear porn that they put out during that, it was really inexcusable. And there had to have been a big purpose behind that to keep pounding that in and pounding it in. And I think that was probably like Sean says, a way to take away some of your liberties and everything. But like what you were saying, most people don't know about the shedding stuff. Once your cells are dead, you're not contagious anymore. But they would not give out the proper information for anybody to make an educated decision either. And I think that was a really big fault.
The problem is they had the news media behind them, the fake news media, pumping and pumping and pumping about how important. And I bet you all the Democrat population, decided to get the vax. I think they got the saline. I don't think they got it. That's my personal opinion. But
Trix mentions the fear porn on it, right? So in New Jersey, as Mike can attest to, we don't have to get out of the car and pump our gas. We have people that pump our gas, which is probably the number one reason why I probably wouldn't want to leave New Jersey, because I hate pumping gas. But anyway, a local place, less than 5 minutes from my home, I go to get gas all the time. Gentleman works there, still wears a mask.
Oh my.
Okay. I don't know. He's outside. He's pumping gas fumes on his hand. He's touching the mask, everything, money and all. I mean, that mask got to be worse than any total COVID patient ever. But still, 5 years after COVID, he's still wearing a mask. I was there last night getting gas, still wearing a mask. I almost want to ask him, but I'm like, I don't even say anything. I almost want to ask him.
We get, and then there's a whole chapter in the book, which is actually the first book, which is really funny on masks. And I again, if I ask people particle size, air fluidity, I quote Dr. Lydia Baruba. Thank you, George. That's the old book. That's vaccine fiction. That's the follow-up. The truth leaks out in small doses. The first one, Fauci's fiction, gets into all the basics. When you talk about masks, Sean, it's funny. I mean, I roll my eyes at these people now, because now I know their IQ level. I know who they voted for. I know what channel they watch. It's all virtue signaling bullshit. When you understand particle size, anything less than 0.25 microns does not settle by gravity. So when you can fit 500 million COVID particles on a pinhead, that's how tiny it is. Mm-hmm. When you have somebody who's symptomatic, they are just, thank you, George. There's the first book, Fauci's fiction, the book on COVID. You are just breathing particles into the air. I always demonstrate that with my vape pen, because you can that's kind of what it looks like. That's what COVID looks like and it only takes one live particle to infect you. So people say to me all the time, well, doesn't the mask make a difference? And I go, yeah, it makes a worse difference, because when you think about what it does, you're not duct taping it to your face, right? So if you were duct taping it to your face, you'd be using the filter. The filter size on a blue, surgical mask is rated for 3 microns. COVID is 0.01 microns. So when you think about that, it makes no difference, but it's not duct tape to your face. You're breathing through the path of least resistance, right? So yes. the difference that it makes is that these people were developing staph infections. It's called Staph aureus. It's a bacterial infection. You get H flu, which is Haemophilus influenza, Klebsiella pneumonia. You would see all these people coming in with bacterial infection. So if they caught COVID, then they would get a bacterial infection on top of it. A lot of times it was attributed to wearing that stupid mask all the time. Yeah. We don't wear a mask for viruses. And then people say, well, why do you wear them in the hospital? Wear them in the hospital so you don't get splatter on your face. You don't drool into the operative field. That's why you wear them in the hospital. However, if you have a properly fitted, and I mean that, properly fitted N95 mask, you're giving yourself the best chance of not catching something. However, the moment that you go to scratch your nose, you have rendered that mask useless because, again, if you understand that it's sitting here floating in front of you, especially if you're inside, if you want to mitigate COVID, open your windows, get outside. It was driving me nuts that we were arresting people surfing on the beach in California. Yeah. That's the safest place to be. And we were doing the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. Wearing a mask for a virus is the second dumbest thing I've ever seen in my career. And we should have explained particle size to people. My mother, and God rest her soul, she passed away last June. When this happened, she had asked me to bring her groceries. And I went to her house and she wouldn't open the door. She goes, go out to the curb. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, go out. I'm trying to stay safe. She runs outside with a mask on. It's upside down. The metal part's down here. She had to wash her groceries. And I talk about this in the book, that what the government did with COVID and not educating people or letting people like us educate the public took all that time away from our families. When I watched funerals where my friend Mike couldn't even go to his dad's funeral because they wouldn't let people congregate in New Jersey, the damage that this did to families, I'll never get that time back with my mom. Never. And I hold people like Anthony Fauci, Governor Murphy. I hold people like that accountable. They're culpable for this. They're the ones that did this. And you could add on MSNBC, fake news, CNN, fake news, CBS. You could add them all together because, if they would have just let people like us talk without saying that we were trying to lie or misrepresent the truth here. Now, of course, it's come full circle and they realize we were right, but it's a little too late.
Oh yeah, even like damage, even with friends. Like we have friends that we haven't been out with in a long time since COVID. Like people were afraid to get out afterwards and mingle and whatever. And there is a lot of damage, just psychological damage besides the health. It's crazy.
Yeah. It damaged a lot of people, I think, in the long term with what happened. And it took away trust for a lot of people too, in the medical field. And that's going to have to be redone.
It was just as good as the politics. It was breaking up families. It was like unbelievable.
Yeah. I know, Dr. Schwartz, I know you're on a time schedule and you got to do your show at 10. So you just let us know when you got to pop out if you got prep to do.
Yeah, I got a couple minutes if you got questions. It's tough being on a time. I sit and try to prep. I don't know how you guys do it. I get up early. I sit here and prep my show. And at 10 o'clock, it's like, boom. And then all of a sudden you're off. And the next thing you know, I got to prep another show for the night show. And then I'm waiting for Sean. I was talking about you, Sean, in my chat.
I'll be in another show.
Yeah. He said a lot about you. He kept on saying, where is Sean? Where's Sean?
I said, I'm doing the show with Sean, but where is he? Hasn't been
Hey, I like the prop with the vape though. It was pretty good. That shows everything right there.
I mean, it's when I would do that with patients, Sean, I'd have people. Yeah, COVID was a tough time. I'll never forget that time frame. I had an office down in Key West at the time as well. I had people walking in with masks on who were so fearful of just the minutia, the nonsense they heard on the media. And sometimes I'd sit with a person, give them a whole dissertation, and I'd do that with the mask, and I'd take a hit and I hit them and I'd blow it and come right out and suck it back in. And by the time I was done, they'd take their mask off. They were living in fear. And I that was the one thing I hated. I hated the fact that people were so brainwashed by this thing. And if they would just understand it, look, don't get me wrong. If you are in the pool of population that can die in the next 5 years, A cold can bring you down. A flu can bring you down. COVID can bring you down. The respiratory pathogens, when those particles, when those virus replicate to the point where it's destroying the mitochondria of your cells, or what we talked about. And if you catch a co-infection, I got a cold. When I say a cold, I tested myself. It was human rhinovirus. That's what we call a cold. We do proper testing. So when I came back from Florida, I drove a car back from Florida not too long ago, and I got really sick, but I didn't sleep. I was exhausted. I just played a week's worth of baseball. I drove my car nonstop. I think I slept for 10 minutes on the road. I was tired. I slept another 10 minutes. When I got home, you know how it is when you drive 24 hours, you're done. You're just beat up. And of course, the next morning I started feeling crappy, and I'm like, oh crap. Now, I had caught a cold down at Yankee camp. Now, if I was in better shape at the time, slept more, not run down, I probably would have fought it off and never knew I got it. But because I was so run down from that drive, it replicated to the point where it took over, and I was sick for like days. And I mean, this is from a cold. So when people tell you a lot of times, oh, I had the flu and it was worse than the COVID, or they don't know, because they're not putting it in perspective again. These myopic views really confuse a lot of people. When they understand it from the perspective that we do, it will change your perspective moving forward on just about everything medical. It drives me nuts that doctors haven't caught on to this. These are the same doctors, by the way, who shut their doors during COVID, who recommended shots with no data. They just recommended it based on what they heard from the CDC. I think we need to have an open conversation about this. So people questioning it. Trix brought up people, not being, questioning their doctors because it changed the trust level of the medical community. I don't blame the public for not trusting medical doctors at this point, but there are a lot of good ones. So don't discount everybody. The point is, do your due diligence when you're talking to a medical professional. Find out what they think. Sometimes you're not going to agree 100%. I mean, Kelly's a practitioner. I hear her. I learn a lot from Kelly. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a research doctor. So when I listen to Kelly, a lot of people will ask me medical questions. I go, that's a Kelly question. And I learn a lot from listening to her and the rest of my staff, because that's what you do when you're around people who do this and when you analyze the data. But there's a huge conversation that we need to have here, and we just scratched the surface of it. I wish people would pick these books up. Unfortunately, look, COVID is not on the top 10 anymore. My new book is called, like I said, it's Trump 2.0, The Battle for Common Sense. The book's called The Only Way to Save America. And that one is going to be more up your audience's, everybody's going to love that because it's what we talk about every day.
I'd like to have you back with that.
But the conversation on COVID, it really needs to be had. And I wish that everybody would understand it the way I do, because it would propel us into the future rather than just kind of going back to exactly what we did before COVID. And that's where we are.
Yeah.
Your books are sold on Amazon.
Anywhere books are sold. The new one is only available on Amazon right now. It'll be in Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, all the other stores in a couple days. Amazon's the easiest place. All three of them, Amazon's the easiest place to find them.
Yeah, and you got your weekday show too. You want to tell the audience about that, so maybe they'd be interested in watching?
Sure. I'm right on after you guys. I'm on at 10 a.m. Eastern every morning, Monday through Friday, the Mike Schwartz Show. You can find that on our channel. It's called Two Mikes Live. That's our night show. And that's where we air all of our shows. My partner does a local show called The Brick Breakdown for Brick, New Jersey. We do national politics show on the Mike Schwartz Show. And Two Mikes Live is on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. Channel, again, is the number 2 Mike's Live. And I come on right after Wake Up Patriots every morning.
That's a good segue then. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and taking the time with us and explaining it. It was very, very interesting.
My pleasure.
We'll have you on again, Mike.
Now, real quick,
Yeah.
let's put these rumors to rest that you're responsible for Cole hurting his shoulder.
No, it's not me. I've given up on the big team, Sean. I don't care anymore. I'm done with it. I'm all about fantasy camp now. I could care less about the
A friend of mine texts me every day. He hates the GM and he hates the coach of the Yankees, Boone. And
I like Boone.
Every day he texts me. He hates him.
What? They made the World Series last year. And
That's why I told him. That's why I told him.
Seriously, they got no room for people have no. I'm telling you, they're just. I love the Yankees. Don't get me wrong, but I've gotten to the point now, Sean, where if I can get down and still throw a ball, I'm happy to do that. And when I watch these guys play and they stub their toe and they can't play the whole season, I'm over it. There you go, George.
There you go. Look at that, Donald Trump on the.
Best
card.
Gonna make the Hall of Fame.
Here's the guy.
I love that voice. That's hilarious.
Well, tune into my show. You can hear it. We'll have you guys on anytime you want to come, Sean. Let me seriously, if I want to help you out in Hamilton,
Well,
I'm happy to do so.
Thank you. I'll have to yeah, absolutely. I'll have to reach out to you. I
All
appreciate
right,
it.
Mike, that's enough for you. Go back
All
to
right,
you.
guys.
All right.
Well,
Thank you,
thanks for
Mike.
coming on.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
good one,
Thanks, brother.
Bye.
Appreciate you. Love you, man. Take care. Bye. Good. Let me tell you, he's got information that's unbelievable. We have to do our
He's good.
contest before we forget.
Yeah, Mike's good. That was a great ad today, without a doubt.
Oh,
I hope
yeah.
everybody appreciate it.
I
guys.
could have talked to him for like about 3 hours.
We could get him on again. He'll
It
come
was
on.
yeah.
funny. He mentioned about how doctors, just pushing the jab, whatever. I left my doctor because of that. My doctor kept on pushing the jab to me, and what was it? Your spike proteins or whatever it was. You could test your level to see if you were high to fight COVID or whatever it was. There was a blood test for that. So I kept on telling him, well, I'll just do that test. And he says to me, well, there's no telling you won't get COVID again. So that's why you should take the jab. So I said to him, well, if I take the jab, are you telling me I won't get COVID again? Well, no. I said, then why would I take the jab? It's crazy. Anyway.
But we're going to do the contest for the answer. We need the answer for tomorrow, right?
Yeah, we'll do the answer tomorrow, but you got the question, George.
Yeah. The Statue of Liberty, when it was built, right? Who was it made for originally? That's the question.
All right, you guys. Who was the Statue of Liberty originally built for? I'm going to start watching. Let's come on, throw your answers in here. We're going to see if anybody gets it.
This is a good one.
We'll tell you tomorrow who won. When you get, I'm watching. Nobody else is in.
Hey,
here.
Chris is in the chat. Hey, Chris.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said Chris is watching us this morning. That's why I said hi. So any of you, nobody had say. Oh, we got Satan. Okay, what do we got here?
Chris, give us your answer.
Huh?
We got to get an answer from Chris.
France.
Okay, I'm getting.
No, France is the one that made it, but who did they originally made it for?
Okay, France.
No, but France is the one.
I know. I'm writing the
Okay.
answer.
Doctor says Ethiopia.
Who said Ethiopia?
Dr. Kurt.
Oh, Doc.
Yeah.
Okay, Ethiopia.
Mark said Joe Namath. I don't think
Mark's doing that to make me write stuff down on the paper because he knows I'm not paying attention. I just keep going.
We got a bunch of people saying France, but that's who it was built by. So
very good question.
Florida for Trump says Boston.
Oh, come on, man. I can't believe people can't answer.
Stacy says, hang on. She's calling hubby.
Let's see. We got Jersey says England.
Red Ginger says the World's Fair. Proud says she's not going to cheat.
Proud never cheats. She's
USN Air says Coolidge.
Who said Coolidge? I missed that.
USN Air.
I'm sorry.
My friend Chris Jersey says England.
Yep, got that one.
Right.
I think I'm down. All right. Merriman is the lowest I got here, and they've got Italy.
Okay. All right. So you got Aunt Jana for Italy.
All right, everybody's gonna be surprised for the answer, but
Hard Man says Klaus Schwab.
Hard Man, you're always such a stinker. Okay. Should we close it out?
Yeah, we'll close it out.
Okay, we're closing it out.
Oh, that's
what Mark Nancy Pelosi's good.
You made for Nancy.
I'll tell you what.
I like the funny answers actually because it ends up making me laugh when we're sitting here doing. So I hope you guys in the chat like that reel today before we started, and everybody got enough of a time to know when we were starting, so you didn't miss anything. I haven't been able to. I was so interested in Mike, I wasn't even looking at the chat because I kept listening to him. So
somebody's got it already. Somebody must have been looking on the internet.
Angel says Egypt. Proud says Germany.
Okay, that's it. We're closed out. Done. I got the list.
Well, Stacy says France made it for the USA. So, but it's here. So that
was the obvious.
That can't be the correct answer.
We would have said that was the second choice was the USA. We didn't know who else to give it to. They didn't want it. Let's We'll give it to America.
They take everything.
Well, they helped us with the revolution. Don't forget, they gave us a lot of
I
money.
seen Love's put that we didn't get the doctor's or didn't get her question answered. I missed her question to Dr. Schwartz. So
What is it?
Loves, type it in. George will
yeah.
text them and get the answer for you.
I usually watch the chat really well, and I didn't today because he was talking so fast and had so much information. I was trying to keep up.
You're
so
right.
I
I didn't want to get distracted. It was such good information. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it was good. He's real good, but he does talk fast, so you have to, keep.
Well, that's all his wheelhouse. So.
Well, yeah, I got what he was talking about and everything. I could talk to him for a long time. It would have been really.
He's very. You know what it is? People are worried because a lot of pharmaceutical companies were suing the news organizations. Fox got sued by pharmaceuticals and everything else because they started questioning about the jab. And plus, don't forget, you got the fake news media just try to destroy you. And plus, the government. You couldn't talk about the government. You couldn't say shit about Fauci. God forbid you say that about Fauci. Could you run that tape on the bottom?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Well, I did. I had it loaded up, and I don't know what happened with StreamYard. Chris said he had problems yesterday. When I went to go put it, it was gone. I had the whole thing with his books, his website, everything. And at that point, I'd have to be like,
it's on. Those books are very good. I read them. I didn't finish the second one, but
it was Fauci's.
It's on Amazon.
Yeah, Fauci's fiction, and then vaccine fiction, and then I missed the
Trump.
He had a book reading.
How to save the country or something like that.
Yeah.
Love's question was pretty good. She said here, does he think mRNA should be banned from all medical use? That's actually
no, you can't.
Can't?
That's my opinion. That's my opinion. You can't, because there is some shots that have good mRNA, but the majority, I would say, yeah.
That's what what's his name? RFK is doing about that with the MRA. They're doing a big investigation.
Yeah, there's some that it would be beneficial for people, but then there's some that
they're convincing my kids for their kids to get the shot with the measles with 30,000 different vaccines in it. And I told them to go to a different doctor. I said, it's good that they get sick. Let them get the measles. Everybody gets measles.
Well, everybody used to get the measles before. That's how you built up your immunity. Yeah.
So,
Brady got measles on the Brady Bunch, if you remember that.
Yep.
Well, the same thing with chickenpox. That's why, people get the vaccine for chickenpox and then they end up with shingles when they're older,
Yep.
I mean, so you're taking a shot doing it. Well, that was a pun. That was a good one too. I mean, you're just taking a chance doing it, but there's a lot of beneficial ones for kids, but the whole thing is anybody that I know that if they're going to do that, the schedule, I tell them, don't ever, bunch them up. If you're going to do it, spread them way out. Even if they tell you come back in 3 months, no, you wait a year and then come back for that. But
everybody make sure to hit the thumbs up mark on the thing.
Oh, yes, please do that. Oh, gosh, it's already 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Holy crap, did that hour go by fast? Well, you guys got to be here tomorrow. We got some really fun stuff for tomorrow, and Mark will be here tomorrow with us too. So, and you guys got anything to say?
I'll tell you, we almost had trouble.
George,
anyway, okay.
Nut keeps saying you didn't say hi to her, George.
Who?
Nut, the Nutcracker. She said she wants you to say hi.
And Jane? Oh, yeah, cool.
No, Nutcracker in the chat, not the Nutcracker you sent out.
I lost the whole chat thing now. I don't know why.
Oh, we'll just say hi then. Well, okay. Well, everybody's checking out now.
Hi, how are you? Sorry about that. I say hello to everybody. It's hard to do.
Well, today was pretty good, though. It went by so dang fast. Anyway, all right. Well, we're going to say goodbye, and we'll see you tomorrow for Frisky Friday. Have a good day. Bye.
Everybody have a great day.
And if you buy his books, comment on it. Tell him how good it is. It's good for him. Yeah, he could use the selling of the books to pay for his lawsuit.
How about that? Lawfare.
A lot of money. All right, everybody. Bye.
We'll see you all tomorrow.
Take care, Sean.
Bye-bye.